Hello there, and welcome to What's the Point? A question we should all be asking ourselves, and the podcast by brand architect Bill Ellis that will help you discover, clarify, and live your purpose.
Welcome back to What's the Point? And as always, I've got a fantastic guest today. I'm so happy and proud and fortunate to have my good friend, Dean Wegner, here on the show. Hello, Dean.
Bill, it's so great to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, as you know, the reason I do this podcast is to help people to discover, clarify, and live their purpose. And boy, you have been doing that your entire life. And you're also an absolutely terrific example that this audience and all the listeners and myself are going to benefit from, because you're a great example of how our purpose can evolve. And before we get much more into that, let me just introduce you a little bit more formally to the listeners, because, again, I've got the pleasure of knowing you reasonably well, but let's let all the listeners know. So Dean is a man of deep Christian faith. He's a family man with a wife and 4 children. He's a veteran and an entrepreneur. He and his wife, Kelly, have been married for 26 years. And their youngest son, they adopted from Ethiopia. When was that, Dean?
2012.
Okay, so not too long before we met.
No.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Dean's a West Point graduate. He spent 7 years in the Army as a helicopter pilot and an Army Ranger. And if you know anything about Army Rangers, it takes a lot of character and purpose and passion and persistence to get through Army Ranger School. And I know that from hearsay because I know I couldn't have done it. But after the Army, Dean started a business career, as I did, in the corporate world. He was in business development, marketing, and strategy with some corporate giants, Mars and Procter & Gamble. And in 2017, the year that Dean and I met, he founded an amazing company called Authentically American. And that's a veteran-owned, American-made premium apparel brand. And speaking of purpose, let me just give this statement and you can build on it. But the vision, the purpose for Authentically American is to build an iconic American brand that is truly American-made. So with that, what do you have to say for yourself? What have you been doing?
Well, Bill, I am looking forward to this discussion because it is so amazing to think back when you and I first met, in Naples, Florida, at the conference there. And, one of the areas that was there was I had an opportunity to share my story, and I was considering 3 distinct opportunities. One was Authentically American. 2 other opportunities were job offers to work for somebody else, and there were benefits to each one. But it's just funny sitting back almost 4 years ago now to know that's when we first met, and that was the whole premise behind me being there was this discussion. You've been part of that journey all 4 years.
Well, and again, it's been my privilege to be a part. So that was one of Tom Hill's Eagle Summits.
Yes.
And it was very interesting because that's the first one that I participated in where he did what he did on a Saturday night, which was to break us into groups of about 10, and different people were designated to talk about things that they wanted advice and input on in their professional life. And that's when Dean brought to our table 3 different propositions, 2 of which were very attractive corporate positions, very attractive financial packages, and a ton of responsibility. And the third was, I think I'd like to start a company with American-made apparel, and I've got a working name for it, Authentically American, and I'd like you all to discuss it. And at that exact instant, I knew what Dean was meant to do. Because just like he is now, if those of you watching on YouTube, his face lit up and he got excited. And that's when you know that you're on to something. So tell me how that impacted you, that meeting and all of those, because there were some very successful business people there. How did that impact you getting started?
Well, Bill, I was so thankful to have you and so many others there, because that was a room full of people that have had tremendous success in their career. And it was like having 6 different board of directors there, seeing a major decision and sharing their perspective. And, I thought I was unbiased in considering all three, but I think you saw right through it, because one of the primary recommendations I make to people is find what you love, find what you're passionate about. And I've never worked harder and more hours than I have over the last 4 years, but it doesn't feel like work, because you saw it back then in Naples, and that's been the same story for the next 4 years, and it will continue on as long as I'm on this journey. I just absolutely love what I'm doing. I feel like I'm making a difference, just pursuing God's calling.
Well, and that's what I saw when in your face. But let me just build on that, because what I talk about a lot, in particular on this podcast, is what I call the purpose principle. And what I mean by that is it all starts with knowing what our purpose is. And whether we find our purpose, discover our purpose, a lot of people say we choose our purpose, which is fine. That's what it takes for our passion to really come into play, because our passion is our fuel once we have something that we are committed to doing. And purpose starts with the whole concept of this podcast, What's the Point, is what are your core values? And so share a little bit about your core values, because I think that's important, because your core values show up in every stage of your life, not just your professional career.
Absolutely, Bill. And to me, it's very simple. Three things to me that are most important. It's all about God, family, and country. And first and foremost in my life is my Christian faith. And we are not a Christian company per se. You don't go to our website and see a cross there, but people that get to know me, that get to know our business, know that it is a godly leader, and the values and principles that we put in place are very much a result of my Christian faith. And then family, you mentioned my wife. I mean, it'll be 27 years in August, Bill, and so blessed with an amazing family and 4 kids. You mentioned our youngest son, Eskel, who's adopted from Ethiopia. He's been with us now 8 years, and it's been incredible to have him with us. We have a 16-year-old son, which you had an opportunity to hear more when I was in St. Louis with you. And then we also have 2 amazing daughters, 19 and 22. And then the country piece, that started at West Point, and the opportunity to serve my country for 7 years. All 3 of those are interwoven into our Authentically American story. And, to highlight 2 of them coming together with Authentically American. So a Christian biblical principle is around tithing, and that number is 10%. And we're a brand that honors our American heroes. And the way we do that, Bill, very intentionally, we donate 10% of our profits to veteran and first responder charities.
Which I find fabulous, and I applaud you for that. Tell us more about the charities that you support.
So right now, Bill, there are 2 of them. Primarily, one is the Folded Flag Foundation. They provide education to Gold Star families. So a family that has lost their service member, and then they're struggling to find education, struggling to find work. So Folded Flag provides that. And then the other one is Reboot Recovery, and they're a faith-based PTSD program. They not only work with veterans, but first responders, somebody that's been inflicted with, that terrible disease around PTSD and just have that traumatic experience. So they help them cope with it. And I love both of them. And I would encourage your listeners, Bill, if they want to support an amazing charity, go search on Folded Flags, search on Reboot Recovery. And I think they would be blown away at the impact they're having.
Well, I agree with you, because I am, from having looked at those. And so the web address for both Folded Flag and Reboot Recovery will be in the show notes, but they're also on your website, which is authenticallyamerican.us, correct?
Absolutely, Bill. And one other thing to highlight, and one of the reasons why I chose Folded Flag and why I chose Reboot, because there's a long list of charities out there, and unfortunately, not all of them are having the biggest impact, because not all their direct dollars get used in the right way. And on a very extreme end, Folded Flag, 100% of the dollars donated, go to the cause, because the founder felt so strongly in that. He personally funds all the operating costs. And the similar story holds true with Reboot. And they're not in a financial position for 100%, but I think it's over 90% of the dollars donated go directly to their cause. And they really embrace that. They operate very lean and mean financially. And that's so they can have the biggest impact they can. And
thanks for sharing that, because first of all, it shows how many caring people there are in this world, and the founder of Folded Flag to cover all operating cost is massive. And even Reboot recovery, that 10% operating expense for a charity is very, very low. People might think, oh my God, but if you look at charities across the board and nonprofits, that's a very low operating cost. So the other thing I love about those, and I am going to take a second to talk about them because I want the listeners to really embrace them. And if they're familiar with them, then they're just nodding their head right now and probably smiling. The thing that those two charities have in common that I love is that they are looking to help people that have felt the impact of having given their service to the country. So in the one, it's taking care of dependents. So education goes to spouse as well as children, correct?
Absolutely.
I mean, the immediate family can benefit, and what a tragic loss. And again, my condolences. Dean just lost his father just the day after we spoke in St. Louis, not too long ago, a month or so ago. But the impact of someone, a loss in the family is tremendous. But the other impact of helping address PTSD, the stat, I don't know what it is today, but the number of veterans that are homeless and then the subset that commit suicide on a daily basis, what could be better than trying to address the impact of combat, the impact of what they've done to try to help our country? So those are fantastic charities, and I applaud you for selecting them, and I applaud them for what they do.
Well, I appreciate that, Bill. And to give, further credence to the point, it's 22 a day. 22 veterans a day commit suicide on average. And that is the difference that Reboot wants to make. They want to go ahead and get that number ultimately to zero. Mm-hmm. And it may never get there, but they're having an impact to lower that number, and they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop working tirelessly until they make a huge dent in that number and continue to make a difference.
Well, that's good to hear. That's also another amazing point about Authentically American and what you're doing. So before we get more into the business, allow me, if you will, to stay a little bit on family for a couple of reasons. Your daughters are amazing. The 19-year-old is Kelly, I think.
So my wife is Kelly, but we've got a K theme, and I will oftentimes confuse the names, especially when I'm mad, because it's Kelly, Kara, and Kayla. So 3 K names.
Kayla, okay. So Kayla, if I'm not mistaken, is the number 2 sales rep in the entire U.S. country for Cutco knives.
Yes.
Right. And your oldest daughter is graduating university, or she's
graduated last spring.
Okay.
From the University of Tennessee, and she is teaching English in Korea.
Oh, wow. How amazing.
Yes.
I'll talk to you off camera because a very dear friend of mine's daughter is looking to exactly that.
Oh, well, we would love to share and help and share her journey, and hopefully what my daughter's doing that would give her some insight into what she would be doing in the future.
So that is what I've learned to call a God wink. That is something that some people might say, well, what a coincidence. Well, it came up the way it did for a reason. And I'm very happy to realize that. And thank you in advance for your help. But, speaking of God winks and speaking of your perseverance and persistence, I love the story about how you and Kelly met. Are you open to sharing that for our listeners? Because it's just a fascinating story.
Oh, absolutely, Bill. And, I am blessed with an amazing wife, and it's amazing, how God brought the two of us together. Mm-hmm. And this was the summer between my junior and senior year at West Point. And my parents moved from Pittsburgh to Knoxville, Tennessee. And my younger brother and I were there helping my parents move. And it's a lot of work moving. Mm-hmm. And we decided to take a break from moving and went out and played a round of golf. And this was my dad, my brother, my grandfather, and I. And my wife, Kelly, gets a little embarrassed, Bill, when I share this story, because she, a sorority sister of hers, that linked up with this summer job, and she thought it was in catering and banqueting. And it turned out she was driving the beer cart.
So, well, that's catering.
Yes, a high-end catering. So my brother was in the golf cart next to me, Bill, and I still remember when Kelly came driving over the hill down to meet us, I elbowed my brother and I said, wow, check her out. And being the older brother, I said, Darren, watch this. I'm going to show you the moves. So, Bill, the first time she came by, I didn't say much. I just gave her a big tip. But the next time she came around, I was trying to ask her out. And she said, well, I'm leaving tomorrow. And I said, well, where are you going? And she said, I'm going to New York. And I said, to do what? And she said, an internship at West Point. And I said, are you kidding me? I mean, it's going to be my senior year. And she, Bill, worked in the Department of Physical Education and wore a uniform. So much to my disappointment, was highly discouraged from dating. Mm-hmm. But I would still go the long way around to class to flirt and say hi. And in December, she left to go back to the University of Tennessee to finish her senior year. And I finished my senior year there. And Bill, this was before, phones.
Right.
I mean, email was just getting started. So we literally had zero contact. And I graduated in May and went back to Knoxville to be with my parents and was looking for a gym to join. I had 2 months before flight school started. So there were 5 of them around where my parents lived. The one I picked, the very first time I went there, bumped into my wife, Kelly, in the parking lot. She was teaching aerobics. I think God said, you know what? You missed it the first time. I'm going to give you another chance. And what's amazing, Bill, 5 months later, Kelly and I are engaged. And here we are 27 years later and 4 kids and just an incredible life journey.
I love that story on so many levels. And thank you for sharing it. And if Kelly gets embarrassed, tell her it's a fantastic story. But yeah. You know that I'm a go-giver coach and speaker.
Yes.
And the 5th law of the go-giver is the one that most of the people that I work with struggle with, and that's the law of receptivity. And very simply, it talks about being open to receiving and receiving what's presented to us, as opposed to getting focused on just one thing. And if I don't get that, then my world's wrong. But for you to be open to seeing Kelly, and Kelly to being open to at least talking with you, and just the way that whole story unfolded is fabulous. It's just a terrific story, and talks, in my opinion, again about there's a higher power than me working in my life, and that's just another series of God winks. So let's talk now about. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no.
Let's talk about.
Say, Bill, it wasn't just one major God wink; it was 2. I mean, it took 2 because I was probably a little thick-headed back then. I needed 2, God winks and God nudges.
It was probably more than that. It sounds like. I mean, to see her first of all on the golf course, then for her to be going to West Point of all places.
Oh yeah.
From Knoxville, for her to be teaching at the same gym, and on. It's just incredible.
Oh.
Let me and our listeners hear more about what got you pursuing West Point. It's not an easy place. You can't just say, I'm going to West Point and go and enlist. Tell us about that journey.
Well, Bill, this goes all the way back to high school, and being intentional. And I really had 2 goals coming out of high school. One, was to get the best possible education I could. And number 2, I wanted to play Division I hockey. And I was familiar with West Point, but not in an in-depth level. And it was the hockey coach reaching out and saying, we would love for you to come visit. We'd love you to be part of the team. That really caused me to dig in and do a little bit more research. And that year, Bill, West Point was the number 1 ranked, college in the U.S. And I thought it really doesn't get any better.
Yeah.
Than the number 1 college in the U.S. And when I'm honest with who I am, I'm a decent hockey player, but I wasn't going to the NHL. I didn't have Boston College. I didn't have the University of Minnesota. I didn't have big schools. And I thought, here's a great opportunity to accomplish both of my goals. 1, get an incredible education, and 2, being able to play Division I hockey.
And again, God's winking all over the place. Yes. Another point to take from this, because I don't want people to think that we just walk through life and God takes care of us. We have to understand what our core values are. We have to understand what our purpose is. And again, to reiterate, that evolves over time. But for a high school young fellow like you to have those 2 goals so firmly implanted, that you wanted to pursue that's how the opportunity became real for you.
Oh yeah.
So what I'm trying to get to, and I know this will help me and our listeners, what drove you to understand what those core values were that you had? What drove you to start to say, these are the goals I want to accomplish as a high school student?
I think two things, Bill. Number one, I think all of us are going to take lessons away from our family and our parents. And, those are lessons. You talked about my dad passing. I mean, I think back to my experience with him growing up and the values that he instilled in me around character and integrity and hard work, and just the values there, I mean, ultimately led down the path of choosing an incredible education. And he was an engineer. He got his engineering degree, really valued education. So that's where that part came about. And then he was also a skier in college, never played hockey, but I grew up in Messina, New York, upstate near the Canadian border, and that's where hockey started. And he had that experience to ski at a collegiate level, and I thought, well, I want that opportunity to play hockey at a collegiate level. And I say the other one, I had a phenomenal high school in Pittsburgh that I was a part of, and I didn't even realize this until later in life. I think it was 99% of the graduates of our high school, Bill, went on to college. And my wife and I, before living in Nashville, lived in 10 different cities. So we moved around quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And I remember some high school parents at those stages saying, Dean, what made you decide to go to high school? I'm going to go from high school to college, because a lot of people will choose to work. And I said, well, it was never even a thought to consider everyone else. The question everyone asked was, well, where do you go to college? And they had kids. I remember one specific discussion where the kid wanted to go work, and they were trying to reinforce, the value of an education. And I think it's one, back to parents, and two, just the high school we were in. And this is the principal, the teachers, the guidance counselor, everyone, just reinforce how important that education is.
And that's terrific. It worked really well for you. And what we're finding these days, outside of yours and my business, is that that's great and was perfect for you and for driven people. But, college isn't necessarily the answer for everyone. So again, understanding, finding clarity about what's really in our heart and soul will help all of us find the right path for us to go down. And there are many, many, many paths to choose from. College isn't the only one, and certainly military service isn't the other.
Bill, let me highlight one point, because you bring up something that's so important, that college was what was best for me. And it's best for a lot of people, but it's not best for everyone. And I think one thing that high schools today are missing is that vocational training. Because that, 1-2% ultimately that did not go the collegiate path, we had things like shop, and there was home ec, and people that, found out they had an aptitude and interest and really wanted to work with their hands. I mean, they ended up, being an auto mechanic and doing things like that. And a lot of high schools has moved away from some of that vocational training. And even the specific industry I'm in, one of our challenges for us to continue to grow and be a billion-dollar brand and be this iconic brand is a shortage of labor. Because when I graduated from West Point in 93, over 50% of the apparel in the U.S. is made in the U.S. And today it's less than 3%. And I have visited all of our factories across 12 different states in the U.S. And we absolutely believe in the American worker, but there's not enough people out there that have that incredible skill. And I think that really starts at that high school level, exposing people not only to the college path and the education you get there, but if you have more skills with your hands and you want to go more of the expert trade route, that there's opportunities out there as well.
That is an amazing stat, from 50% American-made apparel in 93 to 3% 4 years ago. That is just an incredible fall off. So let's go there, because I want to come back to your military career, because I find that very interesting, to be honest with you. But part of what really is interesting about you is creating this company. And to have this idea is one thing. To make the idea a reality is something completely different. share with us kind of that process, because again, you were deciding between three paths, and this was a very unique path. And
yes,
probably, absolutely, I was going to say probably 100% the most challenging path that you could have taken.
It was the most challenging, the most risky, and people, on this journey, because I had a lot of people say, Bill, Dean, I knew it from day one that this is what you wanted to do. This is where you're passionate with. But I also had other people say, what is wrong with you? Are you crazy? And part of me was like, am I making the right choice? Because, having a wife and 4 kids, I mean, there was a lot of responsibility to provide for the family. But really the decision, to pursue the path of Authentically American versus, a company like Procter & Gamble, an $80 billion company, or Mars, a $40 billion company, or, the 2 companies that we discussed in Naples that I was considering, they're all well-established companies. And the thought was, I never really felt at those companies that I was making a difference. Mm-hmm. And that's really that passionate desire I have, is to make a difference. And, this is a visual I like to use, Bill, because this 4 years ago, that was our business plan. It was a blank sheet of paper. And I will tell you, almost 4 years into this journey, I'm exhausted. I can't tell you the number of hours I've worked, and it doesn't feel like work. But here's the benefit. When you start with a blank sheet of paper, you can be so intentional about who you are and what you stand for and your values and your vision and mission. And I wish it wasn't just me here, Bill, on this call. I wish our entire Authentically American team was here, because they talk about, our belief in patriotism. They talk about how much we love the American worker and our opportunity to create American jobs. They talk about our desire to go ahead and honor our American heroes. They'd highlight that vision, how we have an incredible opportunity to leave a legacy if we deliver on everything here and truly build this iconic American brand. So at the end of the day, that fundamental decision, do we go more of the corporate path or the entrepreneurial path and start from a blank sheet of paper, was all about making a difference.
And that you are, and I've had some indirect dealing with a lot of your Authentically American team from actually buying the product, and they are so dedicated and so committed to quality and quick service and customer service. It just really is evident to me that is ingrained throughout the entire team of Authentically American. So pass that along to them, or invite them all into your room right now.
They're all busy right now, otherwise I would, but I will definitely pass that along, Bill. It's so great to hear that feedback. And I love it when people will unsolicited send me an email, send me a text, give me a quick call and said they just had a phenomenal experience, working with my team.
Yeah. And the word about Authentically American is getting out more and more. You've had quite a good media run, from Yahoo Finance to Forbes Magazine, Fox News, Sirius XM Radio, and many, many more beyond that. How challenging is it for an upstart company like Authentically American to get noticed and in turn to get featured?
Nearly impossible, Bill. And that's why we've been so blessed with, this experience. And, you talked before about Godwinks. The very first appearance on Fox and Friends was one that really helped open the door, to this opportunity and reinforce a number of different things. And one is investing in relationships, investing in people. And it was ultimately one of those relationships that opened the door. And this also ties in passion, because after that first appearance, I hear this all the time, like, Dean, it's not easy what you're doing, but you truly believe it. Mm-hmm. You believe that you're going to make this happen. You're going to deliver it. And I'm like, absolutely. And I believe we've been on Fox and Friends 3 times, Fox Business twice, Newsmax TV 4 times. And, we've got some discussions with CNN and MSNBC. So there's a broad range of networks. And one of the reasons they come back is they love to see that passion. Mm-hmm. And it's what we do, but that's something for your listeners, no matter what profession, no matter what vocation, no matter what they're doing, when you're pursuing life's passion and you're giving everything you've got and pouring into it, I mean, it's a contagious story. People want to be a part of it.
Yeah, and as we talked about earlier, it's much easier to do that when we know what our purpose is, because that's going to keep that it's going to keep that passion on high the whole time. So that fuel, if you will, is going to regenerate itself. You've started, and I'm going to say this, and correct me if I'm wrong. My perspective on Authentically American is you started with a narrow niche, which is a smart way to start a business.
Yeah.
And you started very close in to a very focused patriotic approach with supporting military and supporting country, which is fabulous.
Yes.
And what I'm enjoying seeing now, that as you gain some traction there, I see that y'all are starting to expand into a more broad, I'll call it a broad interpretation of patriotism and interest of your potential audience. And what I mean by that is you started doing tie-ins or collaborations with various universities.
Yes. And Bill, just to give everyone some context in our business, so there's really 3 segments. So there is the client side where we started, and most members of your audience who are listening have worked for a company, worked for an organization, and every business, every organization without exception buys t-shirts, buys hats, buys polos with their company logo. And that's where we started, Bill. And it's narrowly focused, but as I was doing my due diligence and putting my business plan together, it's relatively narrow focused, but I also realize it's a massive market. I mean, that whole segment alone is an $8 billion market. So you as a business owner, Bill, have a lot of choices out there. You could, have a Nike polo with your company logo. You could go to Land's End as a leader of a charity and, pick things there. But back to that 3% of all that's being American made, there was no high quality American made choice that's competitively priced out there. And that's the place that we saw as an opportunity to really set ourselves apart, to really make a statement and make a difference and really have a point of differentiation. Yeah.
And a couple of comments there. One of my earlier guests, Brandon Dempsey, who's a brilliant young man and driven just like you. He gives a talk and focuses on a topic called "The Riches Are in the Niches." And to start, you have to be focused. And if you're going to focus, why not focus on an $80 billion segment? Because the other thing I want to say is, most listeners know that I had a long career with Anheuser-Busch, and at the end of my career, I was in the branded merchandise division. And we were big on having quality merchandise to support our quality brands. We could not find quality made American polos, quality made American apparel. And it was very disheartening. So I agree with you that there's a big opportunity in that commercial area.
It's a massive market, Bill. And the area we expanded to next after the client side, was the collegiate side. And we've shifted our focus a little bit because we initially led with the American made, led with the patriotic side, around our brand story. But I started to realize that most people don't care. They don't care. And I realized is we really needed to shift that focus to.
Let me interrupt you just for a quick second. I'm sorry to interrupt, but because I want to understand, I want to make sure that our listeners understand. Yeah. What is it that you say most people don't care? Most people don't care about what? Expand on that, please.
They don't necessarily care where it's made. Our tagline, Bill, is "Where's yours made?" It's designed to be provocative and say, "Hey, Bill, great looking shirt. Where's yours made?" And then people will look at the tag and be like, "Made in China," or "Made in Bangladesh," whatever it says. But at the end of the day, it's not that people don't care. It's not really high on their priority. And what we decided is we're a consumer brand. People buy us and they're going to have an experience. And first and foremost, they have to have an incredible experience. Because if they buy American made and they have a terrible experience, they're never buying again. And let me do this, Bill, if it's okay, because I'll tie in our expansion into the collegiate market, with the American made, because this shirt, for example, is one that's near and dear to my heart. You know, this shirt, for those who are only listening on audio, is a shirt that says Go Army. And I'm a proud West Point grad. And Bill, I wish we were in person at that coffee shop doing this, because you've seen some of our shirts and you know how soft they are.
Yeah.
And the other part is not only is the material soft, but the print that we use, it's only a water-based soft hand ink, because most people would go to their closet and look at the print on their shirts, and it's that heavy plastisol ink, and they don't, wear well. They wash a few times. They're not very comfortable. And this, Bill, is our new sweat activated print innovation, because at West Point, it's all about Go Army, Beat Navy. And here's what happens when you sweat with this t-shirt. This Beat Navy magically appears, and people say, wow. And you can see on the back, there's our vintage US flag. And here's why I highlight this, Bill, because people say, Dean, forget where it's made. It's just an amazing shirt. It's incredibly soft. The ink, I can't even feel it. And wow, that technology. But then what they do is they look at the tag and they see American made and think, that's the only thing in my closet that's American made.
Yeah.
And then they go to our website, and that's when they have an opportunity to learn the story behind our brand, learn the ethos behind our brand. But it's been a shift in our focus, because we led on our story and we pulled back now and we lead on product. We want people, if somebody purchases them, whether it's the socks, I know you have a pair of our socks. I mean, they're Carolina cotton, knit in Carolina, whether it's one of our t-shirts, whether it's our socks, just to have an incredible product experience. And we're now so intentional about leading there.
Well, I can tell you this again, I've got personal experience with your products, and focusing on product is a very wise thing to do, especially having the story that you have to back it up or to support it. Those of you listening that aren't aware of this, all of my podcasts are posted to my YouTube channel, which you can find by going to What's the Point. It's called the What's the Point channel on YouTube. You need to see the demonstration that Dean just gave. I have one of your sweat activated shirts. It's also Army, not because I served, but my father was career Army, retired as a full colonel. But I've got the sweat activated shirt with just the Army A on the front.
Oh yeah.
Which is brilliant. I love it. And I get a lot of comments. I wear it when I wear it out and sweat, I get a lot of comments. It's really it's a cool technology, but it's even a better shirt. Sometimes gimmicky apparel can feel gimmicky and cheap. This doesn't. No. This is one of the best t-shirts I have.
And Bill, here's what's fun, because you talk about growing and expanding. Not only do we have West Point, a lot of my classmates don't like this, but we also have a Naval Academy license. We've got all the military schools. We just added Alabama. We have the University of Tennessee that's coming. We have Auburn that's coming. So we need to add some Missouri schools to the list, and we want to keep expanding that whole collegiate area for us.
Yeah, so I got an email from Authentically American over Dean's signature introducing their new collegiate line with Alabama, and I can't blame you one bit. You can only admire Alabama, certainly from a sports perspective, but as an LSU fan, I found it very hard to embrace that.
It's coming, Bill. We've got LSU in the works.
Well, I'm sure you do, and I hope you get every university. Again, I mean, the universities you mentioned, all Southeast Conference, are fabulous universities and with terrific followings. And once they get it and you expand to other conferences and other universities, whether they're big on sports or whether they're big on education, it doesn't matter. I think that's a massive opportunity, and I applaud you for going there.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think just full circle rounding out the discussion, Bill, where there's three segments. So there's the client side, where we partner with businesses and charities and other organizations. There's the whole collegiate side. And then, where we have our own brand as well. So it was interesting after that Fox and Friends appearance, which was all focused on how we partner with other businesses. I had more and more business owners saying, Dean, how do I get just the flag? And our logo is that vintage US flag. That's our equivalent of the Nike swoosh. And I initially said, well, what are you talking about? And they said, well, we love your brand, love your story, love your logo. I want to buy just your stuff. So that's how we really started pushing on our own consumer brand. So now whether you're a business owner or you're a big collegiate fan of your favorite college where you went to school, or you just want to purchase our own brand, there's now 3 different opportunities to work with us.
And that's how a good business becomes a great business, by expanding from. And earlier when Dean talked about his original business plan, those of you listening, he did hold up a blank piece of paper. His business plan was a blank piece of paper. But to build it the way you have, and to very diligently, intelligently, and intentionally expand to areas that make a ton of sense, are factors why I know you're going to be even more successful. Those of you, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening, make sure you go to authenticallyamerican.us. The story is fabulous, but I don't want to limit the product offering. It's not just T-shirts. It's not just socks. As a matter of fact, I just this past week ordered a shirt, a button-up summer style shirt for my son's birthday. It has nothing to do with Alabama, Army, Navy, Tennessee, or anything other than it's an authentically American shirt. And the design is exactly Americana at its best, 4th of July type. And so there's some great items on that site. And if nothing else, go there just to look at this logo. I told you from the start, I think your Authentically American flag logo is as good a logo as I've seen, using the U.S. flag as inspiration without being a direct ripoff. I think it's fabulous in color, and I know it's fabulous in single color too.
Yeah, and for those on YouTube, Bill, I can hold up my phone. Stickers are very popular, so everyone can see that vintage U.S. flag, and that's a whole nother fun story about it now being a U.S. Patent Office approved, officially registered trademark. So we've got the circle R right next to that logo, which is huge for us, making sure our brand marks have that legal protection.
Which, again, is just smart business. I mean, you guys know what's going on, and I'm impressed. Now, let me get back to a couple of areas before we go. I don't want to keep you any longer than I promised, and we're probably getting up close to it. I do want to hear a little bit more about the success of your kids, and in particular, Dylan, who's quite an impressive hockey player for a 17-year-old. What's going on with Dylan?
So it's interesting, Bill, because all 4 of our kids have been raised in our own house. The same values, same virtues, and everything, but each and every one of them are pursuing a different path. And what my wife, Kelly, and I say, we want to be dream makers for our kids. If they have a dream, how do we help make them come true? And for Dylan, his dream, he wants to be a professional hockey player. And whether it's hockey, whether it's football, whether it's baseball, I mean, it's such a small percentage that ultimately have an opportunity to compete at this highest level. But he, legitimately has an opportunity to pursue that dream. And he is 16. And Bill, you didn't get a chance to meet him, but I was there in St. Louis because of him. But I'm 6 feet tall. At 16, he's already 6'3".
Wow.
He's got the size, and more important than that is his God-given size abilities. More important to that is his just insatiable passion and love for the game. You and I could spend 4 hours talking about Authentically American. I'd hardly stop to breathe. If he was here, he could spend 4 hours and not even breathe talking about hockey. I mean, he just loves it. And he has been at a boarding school in New York the last 2 years, and it's a big financial commitment for my wife and I. It's a big time commitment, and it's an emotional commitment because most 16-year-olds are at home. Mm-hmm. And this is why, Bill, I'm so thankful for technology because, FaceTime and Zoom, the one rule my wife and I said is if you're going away, if we're going to support this dream every night, you're going to FaceTime us. And he is actually the one now that initiates it. He enjoys sharing about his day and sharing about his commitment. But, my son is pursuing his professional hockey dream. I mentioned my daughter who's in Korea. Her ultimate dream is to have her own photography business.
Wow, okay.
Kayla, who's the culinary, Cutco salesperson. She's got a different dream. But that's one thing that I take so personally back to God, family, and country is how do we make our kids' dreams come true?
Yeah.
We want Authentically American to be successful, but even more than that, I want my kids' dreams to be successful.
Yeah. Tell me about your youngest, because if I'm not mistaken, somewhere along the line in social media, haven't I seen him on the ice?
You have. And he loves his older brother and they provide some inspiration. And there has never been a professional hockey player who's played in the NHL who's from Ethiopia. So he has said, Dad, I want to be the first ever Ethiopian professional hockey player. So he's all of 11 years old, but he is just loving life, and he is just a bundle of energy and joy. And obviously still early, but we believe, whatever our kids' dreams are, we want to help fuel that. And, he's now part of a travel team, the Junior Predators here. We play the Junior Blues sometimes. So it's fun to see those come together. And, as many hours as I put in here, it's all about being intentional and making sure that I'm also there for my family and my kids.
And that's an incredible balance. I think that discipline, I'll use the word discipline. You have tremendous discipline. And that's kind of, to me, what came first, the chicken or the egg? For you to have gone through West Point, for you to have become a chopper pilot, and for you to, I'm sorry, you may prefer it called a helicopter pilot, and to become a ranger, that takes a tremendous amount of dedication. It takes a tremendous amount of discipline. It takes a tremendous amount of focus. Share with us a little bit about that military experience and how that's helped shape your life and how that is wrapped in your 3 values.
Yeah. And so thankful, Bill, for West Point and those 7 years active duty. And most people that are familiar with West Point have often heard the words duty, honor, country. And that was an inspiration for me because those 3 words mean something for every West Point graduate. And if you go to our website, people can read our core values, and we want them to be more than just words on the wall. We want them to be more than that. We truly want them to be something that guides our actions. And here's a fun story. I tie it back to Ranger School because most people are familiar with it, but don't really understand what it entails. And there is a ton of military doctrine and tactics that's part of Ranger School, but at its core, it's a leadership course. Mm-hmm. And what they do, Bill, is they deprive you of everything you think you need to survive, namely food and sleep, and then put you in incredibly stressful situations. So day one, there were 340 of us. And then for 72 days straight, if you make it straight through, you live on 1 meal a day and 2 to 3 hours sleep. So you've deprived of those, and then you're put in incredibly stressful physical, emotional, and mental stress. And I would tell you, Bill, from day 1, 340, we lost over 80% of our class. There were only 70 of us left on graduation day, and I didn't know it back then. But Ranger School was such great training for leading a startup because it was all about no sleep and incredible stress. And that's the life I'm living now.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point I wanted to hear from you, because all of your character traits, all of your behavioral traits are all applicable in every aspect of your life that we've talked about. And that's where we can all, myself and all of our listeners, learn a lot from you and understand that it's going to be tough a lot of the times. And that's when persistence comes in. It's going to be questioning sometimes ourselves, oftentimes ourselves, but other people saying, are you crazy? Like you said, people looking at you saying, are you nuts, Dean? And it just seems to be working out because of your commitment. So 2 more things for you, and then I'll let you go. And again, I appreciate your time. What can our listeners and myself do to support Authentically American? Obviously, go to the website, obviously buy some terrific merchandise. How can we spread the word? How can we help this company grow? Because it's more than a company.
It is, Bill, and I appreciate the opportunity to share. So that is the first and best opportunity to go to our website and make a purchase. And you as an individual can do that. As a consumer, you can do that as a college fan. And I'll share this, and please include it in the show notes. There's a discount code FOUNDER that will save you 25%. And that will go ahead and give you an opportunity to go ahead and purchase one of our products. And that way you can see firsthand how to do that. And then the other way is a client referral. And one of the ones that's easiest is to charities, because we donate 10% of our profits. But when we partner with a charity, we provide our goods and services at cost. And that's a way for charities, Bill, to provide to build their brand and also raise some money in the process. So if you as a listener work for a business, or you as a listener have a favorite charity, I mean, reach out to me. It's easy to do via LinkedIn, or you can share my mobile number, my email as well, Bill, in the
I'll be in the show notes.
Yep. So that's another great way is to make a referral.
And let me build on that, please, because again, I told you I was in the apparel business, or the branded merchandise, which was much broader than just apparel, when I was at Anheuser-Busch. If you work for a company, or if you own a company, you need to go to whomever's in charge of buying your logoed apparel, your logoed merchandise, and say, we're American workers in an American company, and we give this stuff away. And a lot of it's made in China. And I've got nothing against China per se, but I've got a lot more in favor of America. Go to your company, go to decision makers and say, I love my company and I want to support it. And I love wearing our stuff, our swag, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. But buy American and buy from this company, because that's a resource I wish I had 20 years ago.
Well, I appreciate that, Bill. And the other thing I would offer up back to that go-giver mindset, if there is any one of your listeners that is considering going down the path of being an entrepreneur and wants some perspective, insight, all the things that I broke and did not do the right way, or things that have worked out, they can reach out to me that way as well.
You are very gracious with your time and with your knowledge and with your caring. I appreciate all of that. Everything we've talked about will be in the show notes. Dean's phone number, his email address, the charity links, the authenticallyamerican.us and all of his social media. Everything will be in the show notes. Don't miss that. And we'll end with one thing that I always end with.
Yes.
Everything we've talked about, it comes down to this. What's the point?
Mm-hmm. For me, Bill, we touched on this early, just to make it very simple. This is all to me about making a difference, making a difference with my family, making a difference with our business, and ultimately making a difference in this great country of ours, the United States.
Well, I love that you were succinct, and that even though you seemed a little bit thrown by the question, your comment is brilliant. And that is as good an answer to what's the point as I've heard in all of the time I've been doing this. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for your time again. Again, everybody, go to the show notes, check out Authentically American, check out Dean Wegner. Thank you for your time, my friend. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much, Bill.
Thanks so much for tuning in. And if you like what you heard, please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. We can promise you'll gain value in every one. Rating and reviewing makes us more discoverable and helps others find out what's the point. And if you'd like to know more about Bill Ellis or contact him, please visit his website, www.brandingpillars.com. See you next time.